The Rolling Stone cover that features the Tsarnaev brother who survives after the Boston bombing. And a lot of people are taking issue with this cover because of the way it looks. It seems to kind of make him seem like a rock star, make him seem like he's being idolized by people, glorified by people. And understandably, if you were one of the victims of the Boston bombing, if you see that Rolling Stone cover, you're under the assumption that they're making him out to be a good guy. And of course, they're not actually doing that in the article. The article profiles him. They interview family members and friends that were familiar with him. And it's not like a positive article about him. But just by looking at the cover, it seems like they are making him out to be some sort of rock star.
So I got two thoughts when I saw the cover. One, I didn't even like the title, like The Bomber, right? It almost makes it sound cool, like in some weird, well, I remember, and you might think that's weird, but as we were doing that story, as it was happening, I never wanted to call him the Boston Bomber, because it almost sounded like a baseball player or like a character, or etc. I don't want to glorify these guys at all. In fact, on this show, we have a policy of not mentioning the name of the Newtown shooter. That's when we started that policy for the shooters, etc. Because you see it in their writings. Oftentimes they say, oh, you know, I saw how much attention the other guys got, and I want to go out with a bang, and I want to show people what I can do. And they're dreaming of covers like this. And, you know, look, we don't show streakers at baseball games. Like, oh, you don't want to give them any attention. Now, Rolling Stone has given this guy attention by putting what's got to be the best picture of him ever taken on their cover. They could have chosen from 100 different pictures. Remember the bug-eyed picture of Michelle Bachmann?
Right.
Like, if you want to take a bad, show a bad picture, you can show a bad picture, right? Now, don't get me wrong. The context of the article is what he did. He looks like one of us. He looks like a young guy who might be reading Rolling Stone.
Right, but he turns out to be a monster.
A monster, right.
So the article isn't bad at all. I think that they did a pretty good job with it. But the cover just sends the wrong message, and glorifying people like this is a bad idea. And I love that you mentioned the bomber, because that really stands out to you as well. And it's like, there are so many psycho people out there that are obsessed with fame, and they are willing to chase after that fame at any price. And you don't want to egg them on. You don't want to glorify anyone who's done anything this hideous. So I can totally understand why people are upset about it. But what's so amazing is Rolling Stone seems to stand by the cover. They seem to justify it in the statement that they released after the criticism. So let me read that to you guys. They said, "Our hearts go out to the victims of the Boston Marathon bombing, and our thoughts are always with them and their families. The cover story we're publishing this week falls within the traditions of journalism and Rolling Stone's long-standing commitment to serious and thoughtful coverage of the most important political and cultural issues of our day. The fact that Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is young and in the same age group as many of our readers makes it all the more important for us to examine the complexities of this issue and gain a more complete understanding of how a tragedy like this happens."
So I'm 50-50 on that statement. I understand what they're saying. Look, a lot of our readers might look at that and go, how could this happen? That guy looks like the guy next door. And so that's legitimate. But the other half of it is, come on, you know what you're doing. You know it's going to get controversy. You know that everybody's going to be talking about it. It's not like that was lost on you. It's not like you had an editorial meeting and nobody was like, ooh, I mean, I hate to break it to you guys, but that looks like that's kind of a cool cover. That leads me to my second point. I immediately thought of the Jim Morrison cover from Rolling Stone, which is like, I think, one of their most famous covers. It's the one I always think of when I think of Rolling Stone.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right?
That's a great comparison.
And so now you got this guy looking literally like a rock star on your cover. And so I know you want to cover it, and whether you have to do a cover story on it is a different question. What picture you pick is a question. I think they crossed the line from just coverage to almost glorifying it.
Do you feel that they knew that this backlash was coming when they published this photo?
Yeah, I think. Look, they do it on purpose, and it's not just Rolling Stone. A lot of magazines do, and they go, oh, did we put a naked person on the cover? Oops. Oh, is that a controversy? Right? And Rolling Stone has done this in the past, and they point to it, too. I mean, obviously, you've got that very good example of it, right? And it's not like they didn't know, hey, like, will people be talking about the guy's hands on her breasts? Yeah, of course they knew. And that's Yoko Ono and John Lennon. And he was shot 5 hours after that picture, and they went with it anyway. Now, so here's the one I want to talk about, Charles Manson. So now, all the way back in the day, they put Charles Manson up, on their cover. And they said, look, we did Manson, why can't we do the bomber? But then Manson did become kind of a rock star. You know, everybody talked about Charles Manson. I mean, and not just because of the Rolling Stone cover, obviously, and it's not like people think Charles Manson's awesome, but he became this huge figure and that people talked about. And that's not appealing to us, but if you're a psycho out there, did you want to maybe think like, maybe I could be the next Charles Manson? Everybody's talking about Charles Manson. Charles Manson is so famous.
Right.
So I don't think that proves their case that it's not a big deal. It might actually do the opposite.
Yeah, I think it's a huge deal, and I agree with you that they probably knew that this was going to lead to a lot of criticism when they published it. Now, there are a few stores that have refused to sell this August issue of Rolling Stone. CVS is one of those stores. Walgreens has also decided to not to boycott this issue. CVS did release a statement, and they say that they have decided not to sell the current issue of Rolling Stone featuring a cover photo of the Boston Marathon bombing suspect. As a company with deep roots in New England and a strong presence in Boston, we believe this is the right decision out of respect for the victims of the attack and their loved ones. And that's something that I don't think is being considered enough in these discussions. How would people feel if they had a family member that died as a result of this bombing, and then you see this jackass on the cover being glorified like that?
Yeah, and Rite Aid also decided not to go with Rolling Stone this month in their stores. And I agree with them. Now, look, Rolling Stone has every right to publish it any way they like. Of course, freedom of the press, we're libs. There's no way we disagree with that. But also, CBS has the right to make this decision. And they're not making a prudish decision. You know, they're not making it out of some sort of like nonsense moralistic point of view. I think they're right in that, hey, this is not the right direction you want to go. It sends the wrong message.